The New Mutants movie is set for a 2019 release and will be the first horror movie in the X-Men franchise. It'll star the likes of Anya Taylor-Joy, Maisie Williams, and Charlie Heaton, and quite frankly, it looks amazing. In this video, we'll run you through some of the most interesting fan theories about it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's the best way of keeping up to date with all of ScreenRant's great new videos.
The world's first.
World's first what?
The world's first mutant.
The first MCU Mutants. The New Mutants movie was originally set for an April 2018 release, having finished filming all the way back in September 2017. However, its release date was pushed way back until August 2019 in order to accommodate reshoots. The thing is, that seems like a heck of a long time to merely accommodate reshoots. Like a really long time, which has led some people to theorize that there was more to the holdup than the cast and crew have revealed. Yes, we know that Maisie Williams has been working on Game of Thrones, and scheduling can obviously make reshoots difficult, but her contract would surely have allowed for said reshoots to take place. With the Disney-Fox deal all but secured, a theory proposes the delay is actually due to the fact that Disney wants to make the New Mutants movie the first X-Men offering in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney and Fox, therefore, might have come to an agreement which lets Disney have the New Mutants movie in exchange for a hefty cut of the profits, and not wanting to jeopardize the deal up, Fox said yes to the idea. Disney therefore have pushed the release date back to several months after Avengers 4, which will end up giving a solid reason as to why mutants exist. As for the reshoots themselves, they aren't actually reshoots at all. They're actually new scenes to help tie the movie into the MCU correctly. Interesting theory, huh? It will be genuinely scary. As we're sure you already know, the New Mutants movie has been described as a horror movie, making it one of the first comic book movies to genuinely come with that tag. Of course, the likes of the Blade trilogy, the Ghost Rider movies, and Spawn have included aspects of the horror genre before, and movies like Green Lantern and Howard the Duck were horrifying for very different reasons. But there's a theory New Mutants will break the mold, and it's the theory that it'll be a genuinely scary movie, even by actual horror movie standards. Why does this theory exist? Well, it's simple. A horror movie in the X-Men franchise is a risk, and there's absolutely no chance that everyone who ever watched an X-Men movie will like it. In fact, the younger fans of the franchise probably won't even be allowed to see it. With that in mind, it has to appeal to horror fans, and to do that, it'll require some genuine scares. Maybe the reshoots were demanded because the movie didn't live up to its horror tag when it was originally completed. Perhaps the filmmakers just thought, to hell with it, let's go back and make this movie as scary as hell. It'll certainly make for a unique and interesting experience to come out of a movie theater having been scared witless by a comic book offering, and we're definitely intrigued to see if it ends up happening.
All of you are dangerous. That's why you're here.
An origin story. If this particular theory came true, it wouldn't exactly be a revelation. Many comic book movies before it have had the same premise. But given that we don't know anything about New Mutants at this point, it still is indeed a theory. And it's the theory that it will be an origin story for the titular character's super team. The same theory also suggests that in the movie's third act, the New Mutants will escape the secret facility in which they're being held against their will. Maybe one of them will escape on their own first and then go back for the others, and whichever mutants escape will be found by Professor Xavier, then taken to Xavier's school for mutants. Unlike the vast majority of the other comic book movies, New Mutants won't be about saving humanity or saving a city. It'll all be about the titular characters saving and reinventing themselves. In the trailer we've seen, it looks as though the young mutants will be having trouble controlling their powers, and the people working at the facility won't be helping them to do so. In fact, they'll probably spend most of their time talking down to the mutants, experimenting on them, torturing them, suppressing their powers, and generally treating them like dirt. Being taken in by Xavier would be the catalyst for the movie's stars to start their new lives, more than likely as the titular New Mutant superhero team, working under the X-Men leader's guidance, and that would be pretty cool.
When an individual acquires great power, the use of that power is everything.
A movie with a message. Apart from conveying the notion that being heroic is a good thing, most comic book movies don't come with very obvious messages. But this theory suggests that New Mutants will indeed have one. The theory suggests that the message of the movie will come when one of the titular New Mutants escapes on their own from the facility in which they're all being held against their will. Let's say Maisie Williams Wolfsbane, for instance. Then, once that character is found and taken in by someone, Professor Charles Xavier, for example, the character who finds them may tell them something along the lines of, "You are who you are, so accept it." That's what this theory says the message will be: accept yourself and what you are. By doing this, the New Mutants could, as a result, end up saving themselves and maybe even gaining a greater control of their mutant powers, which would allow them to be better heroes going forward. Should the one escaped mutant learn that particular lesson, he or she will then return to save their friends and tell them the same thing. It would be a good message for younger people who may be different in some way, whether they look, act, or simply feel different to what is considered normal against their peers in the real world. It would help them feel better about themselves and potentially help the people around them to be more accepting of them. Well, at least we can hope, right? Essex Corp and Dr. REYES. The secure facility in which the titular New Mutants are being held must be special in some way. No ordinary real-world type facility could hold such powerful individuals against their will, right? Well, there's a theory that explains why the facility might be able to do exactly that. The movie will be loosely based on the comics, a bit like how Logan was, and the hospital is actually an Essex Corp facility, where they are experimenting on mutant children, because that's pretty much all they're known for doing in the comics. Essex Corp was teased at the end of 2016's X-Men Apocalypse, when a briefcase marked with the company's name was used to store mutant blood samples. Who knew that scene could have been teasing the New Mutants movie? Anyway, back to the story. It suggests the main villain is Alice Braga's Dr. Cecilia Reyes, a character who will be posing as the titular character's mentor. This version of Reyes will actually be the Demon Bear, which makes a lot of sense, because one of the Demon Bear's main powers in the comics is shapeshifting, kind of like Pennywise the Clown of It Infamy or Marvel's Skrull Aliens. Dr. Reyes, aka the Demon Bear, will somehow use Mirage's power to make the nightmares of the New Mutants come to life, either as a kind of experiment or for her to feed on them. At the movie's climax, the New Mutants will have to fight Reyes in her true form, the Demon Bear. Pretty cool.
Controversy and debate at a time when mutants were becoming accepted around the world.
Mutants aren't hated. When the X-Men franchise first became a thing, mutants lived in a world in which they were hated. There's a theory, however, where mutant hate is no longer the case in the current timeline, and while New Mutants will be the first to show that explicitly, some evidence already exists. In Deadpool 2, when Fire Fist was attacking the orphanage and the X-Men showed up, the reaction of the reporters was positive and similar to how someone would react if the Avengers or Spider-Man showed up to save the day. In fact, nobody who was present reacted negatively. Moreover, while the future that Cable traveled back from did seem dark and depressing, nothing was mentioned about mutants being hunted for being mutants. Fire Fist was being hunted because he'd become a murderer, but it was almost as if he was an anomaly in that sense. X-Men Apocalypse also seemed to suggest mutants weren't hated in the current timeline. And if we're to assume New Mutants takes place in the same timeline as those movies, this theory could turn out to be correct. An extension of the theory suggests the New Mutants will be led to believe the rest of the world hates them by those keeping them captive, but the implied hatred will simply be a way of making them hesitant to escape. The mutants wouldn't want to live amongst people who despise them after all. What is essentially their prison will also act as their safe haven, with part of their mistreatment coming in the form of a massive, massive lie. X-Men franchise cameos. New Mutants is an exciting concept, especially for those of us familiar with the group from the comic books, and it does have some major star power with the likes of Game of Thrones' Maisie Williams and Stranger Things' Charlie Heaton in starring roles. However, for those who are only familiar with superheroes in the movies, it might not have the star names, the likes of Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Iron Man, that will immediately entice them to want to watch it. With that in mind, there's a theory the movie will feature a number of cameos from familiar characters, in order to connect it to the movies fans who know nothing about the comics are familiar with. Although we haven't seen any cameos in the trailers, the director has hinted that the movie would connect with the X-Men franchise in various ways, which makes this theory make a whole bunch of sense. Just who those characters might be remains a mystery, but we have a few ideas. Professor X, by his very nature, deals with young, troubled mutants, so the titular characters in New Mutants would surely be on his radar. William Stryker has something of an obsession with mutants, so there's every reason to believe that he'd take an interest in them as well. Deadpool seemed to enjoy his role as Fire Fist's guardian/mentor, so maybe Ryan Reynolds' character will show up to lend the New Mutants a helping hand. We can't help but think the New Mutants could use some familiar faces, so we really hope this theory turns out to be true. Nightmare on Elm Street parallels. This theory suggests that New Mutants will share a number of very obvious parallels with the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and who would have thought we'd ever be saying that about a comic book movie? In particular, the theory suggests that the movie will feel very similar to Dream Warriors, the third installment of the Nightmare series from 1987. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 was set in a hospital, just like New Mutants will be, and it saw Nancy Thompson training the hospital's patients to control their dreams in order to fight back against the terrifying and powerful Freddy Krueger. Something similar could happen in New Mutants, with the Demon Bear appearing in the mutants' nightmares, and the mutants ultimately fighting back to defeat it. In fact, New Mutants director Josh Boone has actually hinted about having taken some inspiration from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and there's a scene in the trailer showing something evil coming through a wall, just like Freddy Krueger did in the Nightmare movies. Demon Bear could end up being very similar to Krueger, and the comic book baddie could become a horror icon as a result, as well as potentially becoming one of the best and most unique villains ever seen in a comic book movie. One thing's for sure, if this movie ends up having half as big an impact on audiences as the first Nightmare movie did back in 1984, it could end up terrifying an entire generation.
Did you know baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous than adult ones?
Another villain. It's already been established the Demon Bear will be the main antagonist in New Mutants, but there's a theory it won't be the only villain in the film, and with good reason. In the comic books, the Demon Bear was actually created by another villain, although who that villain is remains a mystery to this day. So perhaps said villain will be revealed in the New Mutants movie, something that would be a comic book movie first kind of deal. You have to imagine the Demon Bear will go largely unseen in the film. It is a shape-shifting being after all, and it'll probably take the form of someone else for the most part. Perhaps it'll take the form of Dr. REYES, for example, making the New Mutants' biggest fears manifest in their dreams before emerging in its full monstrous form for the movie's climactic battle. Therefore, a more tangible and recognizable villain will be required to give the audience what they want. It could be an already established X-Men movie franchise bad guy, such as William Stryker, Bolivar Trask, or even a resurrected Apocalypse. Or it could be a newcomer, like Nathaniel Essex, Cassandra Nova, or Proteus. Regardless, even if the Demon Bear turns out to be as awesome as we're all hoping it is, it's hard to see it carrying the whole X-Men movie as the sole villain, so we're really hoping somebody else appears to lighten its villainous load.
You've been through a lot. Get some rest.
And that's the end of our video. Did you enjoy it? What do you think of these New Mutants movie theories? Do you have any of your own? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great videos just like this one. Bye for now.